Hi, I'm Craig Brailsford. Welcome to another episode of Small Stocks, Big Money. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up is the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF. It offers investors focused exposure to the growing global music industry. The fund aims to replicate the performance of the MUSQ Global Music Industry Index, which rebalances quarterly and includes publicly traded companies and royalty funds with significant revenues tied to music. The Global Music Industry ETF provides access to key segments such as music streaming, live events and ticketing, content distribution, satellite and broadcast radio, and music equipment and technology. Launched in July of 2023, the fund is positioned to benefit from the evolving digital landscape, including the rise of streaming and AI-driven content creation. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Up next is OKYO PHARMA Limited, a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company developing innovative therapies for the treatment of dry eye disease and neuropathic corneal pain, with ordinary shares listed for trading on the NASDAQ capital market. OKYO is focused on the discovery and development of novel molecules to treat inflammatory dry eye disease and ocular pain. In addition to the recently completed Phase 2 trial of OKY to treat dry eye disease patients, OKYO is also evaluating OKY to treat patients with neuropathic corneal pain, with the just announced opening of a Phase 2 trial to treat the debilitating conditions of neuropathic corneal pain. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Now, before we get to the first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book, Small Stocks, Big Money. If you want to invest in the microcap space, buy companies, not stocks. If you buy stocks, the daily fluctuations and lack of liquidity will drive you crazy. This quote comes from Byron Roth of Roth Capital, and it is featured in Chapter 7 of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now let's get started with our first interview today with the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF. Hello everyone, we have David Schulhoff today, founder and CEO of the Global Music Industry ETF. David, welcome back.
Thank you, Craig.
David, please start by explaining what the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF is, and of course, the unique investment opportunity it offers within the music industry.
So we are the first pure play music exchange traded fund, giving investors a front row seat to the music industry across streaming, content, live music events and ticketing, equipment and technology, and satellite and radio.
You have a deep background, David, in the music and entertainment industry. And now, what inspired you to create the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF? And how does it leverage that extensive experience in the sector that you've built up?
So I've been investing in the music industry for over 25 years across different publishing companies, record companies, live music companies. About 2 years ago, I recognized there was not a liquid and convenient way for retail investors to get exposure to the whole global music industry. So I put together a fund that would capture all of these companies globally.
David, as you just mentioned, the Global Music Industry ETF includes companies from a variety of segments within the music ecosystem, from streaming to live events to music technology. How do you decide which companies or segments to include?
So the eligibility requirements are such that all the companies have to generate more than 50% of their revenues from music, or they have to be a top 5 player in either streaming or content or live music events or equipment and technology. Approximately half the holdings in the fund are domestic and half the holdings are international equities.
Now, David, according to the Goldman Sachs Music in the Air report, the music industry is projected to grow at a compound annual rate of 7.6% from 2024 to 2030. What are the key drivers of this growth, and how is the global music industry ETF strategically positioned to leverage these opportunities?
So if you read the Goldman Sachs report, streaming is a big driver of this growth. 84% of all music consumption in the United States is dominated by streaming, and that's growing at 10 to 15%. Live music is up 10 times from COVID. That's growing at approximately 25%. And then music publishing is growing at 10 to 15%. So all these different components of the global music industry are showing very robust growth. And the industry is actually growing from a $100 billion business today to over $171 billion by 2030. Paid streaming subscribers are expected to more than double over the next 6 years. It's really about the digitization of music. It's about the evolution of streaming. And these numbers are even more aggressive in the emerging markets where streaming is growing as high as 25%. So we believe that this forecast for music is extremely compelling for investors.
Could you highlight for us some of the top holdings in the global music industry ETF, and how often is the portfolio rebalanced?
Some of the top holdings in our fund include Spotify, Live Nation, Universal, Sony, Warner Music Group, exciting companies internationally like Tencent Music, or HIM in Taiwan, or Genie Corp in Kakao in South Korea. We have companies around the world that are involved in the global music industry. The fund gets rebalanced quarterly. And every quarter, some new companies become eligible for inclusion, either through a SPAC or through a merger or reorganization. And if any company falls below $100 million in market cap, it becomes excluded. Our fund is a nice cross-section of small cap, mid cap, and large cap equities.
David, to wrap up, what is the essential value proposition? Why should investors consider adding the global music industry ETF to their portfolio right now?
Music today is extremely undermonetized. It's extremely undervalued. Music is cheap compared to what you pay for other streaming services like Disney or Hulu or HBO Go or Netflix. That's why you see all the streaming companies like Spotify raising rates every quarter, because music is undervalued. If you look at the JP Morgan report, music today represents the most undermonetized media asset out there in the industry. So we believe all these streaming companies will continue to raise rates, which will continue to provide additional revenue streams to all the record companies and music publishing companies.
It's a great idea, David, and a fascinating story. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, to get more information on the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF, visit musqinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book written by RedChip CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now, let's move on to our next interview today with OKYO PHARMA Limited. Hello, today we have Gary Jacob, the Chief Executive Officer of OKYO PHARMA, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker OKYO. Gary, welcome.
Pleasure to speak with you, Craig.
Same here. OKYO is presently developing an innovative therapy called OK101 to target ocular diseases, and I understand there was a recent press release, Gary, on its potential to treat an ocular condition called neuropathic corneal pain. Can you give our viewers a quick overview of OK101 and the significance of this recent press release?
Certainly, Craig. Of course, we're very excited. Just yesterday, we announced that we had dosed with our flagship drug, OK101, first patient dosed with OK101 to treat an ocular condition called neuropathic corneal pain. Obviously, we were excited because we worked very hard on this program. In fact, OK101 had already been through a major clinical trial where we generated a considerable amount of safety data. And of course, we're very excited about moving ahead with this drug to treat neuropathic corneal pain.
What makes neuropathic corneal pain such an important condition to address? And why has the company decided to specifically evaluate OK101 to treat neuropathic corneal pain?
Certainly. So it's important to stress that what we're doing is we're pioneering the clinical development of a drug, first company to actually explore a drug to treat neuropathic corneal pain where patients have been diagnosed specifically. And we've worked closely with FDA on a protocol and designed to do this. Now, neuropathic corneal pain is a major unmet medical need. It's a very serious, acute, and chronic condition for people who suffer from pain that's different from a dental pain or the kind of pain that you might have with a headache, for example, that kind of pain. We're talking about pain that stems from damage to ocular nerves, somewhat like you would consider when you have a spinal cord injury and people have terrible pain in their extremities. Same thing applies in the ocular space where you have highly innervated nerves, and that kind of pain is so excruciating and so debilitating that these patients are suffering a considerable level of pain. So neuropathic corneal pain has no FDA-approved drug, and so we are looking at is the first company to be actually exploring a drug with an IND that was cleared by FDA earlier this year to treat neuropathic corneal pain.
Was there any preclinical or clinical data that led to the decision to move forward with the clinical evaluation of OK101 to treat that neuropathic corneal pain?
Certainly, Craig. Well, first of all, what we were excited about was we've been working with one of the foremost experts in the area of neuropathic corneal pain, Dr. Pedram Hamra, who is a professor at Tufts Medical Center in Boston. He also has developed a cutting-edge model, an animal model for evaluating drugs for neuropathic corneal pain. And we were very excited in that program with Dr. Hamra, where we saw our drug OK1 displaying very significant potential in this animal model. So that was number one. Number two is in the clinical trial we just completed in dry eye disease, and a number of these patients in dry eye disease suffer corneal damage that can lead to a neuropathic corneal pain. We were excited by the results that we saw in that trial, where we actually got statistical significance in the reduction in ocular pain. The other element, of course, is that we have other preclinical data that are all demonstrating all the characteristics for why we believe this drug has real potential. And so that's what was really motivating us to take this drug, OK101, immediately now into a trial designed to evaluate it in neuropathic corneal pain.
You know, OKYO PHARMA, I think it's fair to say, is leading the pack, Dr. Jacobs. OK101, for example, is the first and only drug treatment to have been dosed in patients. How does it feel to be the market leader?
Well, we're absolutely ecstatic about that. We're excited because these are patients that have no approved drug from FDA, and they are struggling with their kind of pain that's so acute that some of these patients ultimately, unfortunately, can actually lead to suicide. That's how devastating this condition can be. So we're really pleased, and we view that we're pioneering the development of the clinical program to treat people with this neuropathic corneal pain. In fact, to actually show that a patient has neuropathic corneal pain requires a specific diagnostic tool. It's called confocal microscopy, and that's what, of course, Dr. Pedram Hamra brings to this whole exploration. This will be what we're using to diagnose patients with neuropathic corneal pain in the trial that we have just begun.
Gary, as you've been describing, this is a very serious condition, but it's also under-recognized. Again, neuropathic corneal pain. How large is the unmet medical need, Gary, and how will this trial address that gap?
Certainly. Well, the issue of whether or not this drug has what's called orphan drug designation is something that's being currently determined. In order to have orphan designation, you need under 200,000 patients. And obviously, it gives the developer the value of having exclusivity with an orphan indication, something that FDA really established to encourage companies to actually develop drugs for orphan diseases. So that's it's not clear. But what is important to remember, particularly for investors, is that a company that develops a drug where there is virtually no approved drug, first in class, has a tremendous opportunity from a commercial standpoint because there's no approved FDA drug. And that's why we believe that this is a major binary event for the company, that we believe that with the release of our data, which we're pegging for sometime this summer, this would be a very important event for the company, and one that I would argue investors in biotech ought to look at very closely in terms of an investment.
Which leads to the next question. Again, you've got a binary event here coming. In light of that, what is the essential value proposition, Gary? Why should investors take an interest in OKYO right now?
Certainly. And I think in just reinforcing what I've just said, we are a company that's a small company. This is the kind of result that literally can lead to the kind of partnerships with big pharma, the kind of final merger acquisition outcome that you have with a drug that has the potential to treat a major unmet medical need, where FDA has been making clear their need for an approved drug to treat this devastating condition.
Gary, you make a very professional and powerful case. Thanks for talking to us today.
It's my pleasure, Craig. Have a nice day.
Now, to get more information on OKYO Pharma Limited, visit okyoinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like OKYO Pharma Limited. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can order Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for $18. Now, let's recap the companies featured today. First, you met the MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF, MUSQ, on the New York Stock Exchange American. The MUSQ Global Music Industry ETF offers investors focused exposure to the growing global music industry. The fund aims to replicate the performance of the MUSQ Global Music Industry Index, which rebalances quarterly and includes publicly traded companies and royalty funds with significant revenues tied to music. Global Music Industry ETF provides access to key segments such as music streaming, live events and ticketing, content distribution, satellite and broadcast radio, and music equipment and technology. Launched in July 2023, the fund is positioned to benefit from the evolving digital landscape, including the rise of streaming and AI-driven content creation. Learn more at www.musqinfo.com. Then you met OKYO PHARMA Limited, OKYO, on the NASDAQ. OKYO PHARMA is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company developing innovative therapies for the treatment of dry eye disease and neuropathic corneal pain, with ordinary shares listed for trading on the NASDAQ Capital Market. OKYO is focused on the discovery and development of novel molecules to treat inflammatory dry eye disease and ocular pain. In addition to the recently completed Phase 2 trial of OK101 to treat dry eye disease patients, OKYO is also evaluating OK101 to treat patients with neuropathic corneal pain, with the just announced opening of a Phase 2 trial to treat the debilitating conditions of neuropathic corneal pain. Learn more at www.okyoinfo.com. Don't forget, check out our stocks page. It is the biggest small cap stock portal in the industry. Every company listed on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange with market cap of $2 billion and less, and is categorized by industries. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. And be sure to sign up for our weekly newsletter and learn about a lot of small cap companies. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, if you have any questions about any of our public companies featured on today's show, call us at 1-800-REDCHIP or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile of asset classes. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies, so please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new, exciting, emerging growth companies.
Hello, my name is Dr. Owen Hershkovitz. I'm the CEO of Enlivex Therapeutics. Enlivex is a public company traded on the NASDAQ under the ticker ENLV. Enlivex is a unique and novel cell therapy company developing Allocetra, our cell therapy platform, which targets inflammatory chronic and acute indications defined as multi-billion-dollar markets and unmet medical conditions. Our pipeline consists of several clinical phase studies in sepsis and osteoarthritis, and a really unique mechanism of action that targets unique cells called macrophages. Macrophages are a key regulator of the immune response and are actually involved in many inflammatory chronic and acute conditions, aggravating the inflammatory state. We know how to utilize the naturally healing power of macrophages, reprogram them into a state when they actually bring the immune system back into a normal state using our cells. What's unique about our platform is it's really off-the-shelf, cost-effective cell therapy, very, very competitive in terms of the pharmacoeconomical model of our platform. As I mentioned, we have several clinical programs in sepsis, osteoarthritis, and other additional indications. And actually, we have several milestones, clinical milestones, top-line data from sizable randomized controlled studies coming ahead in throughout the next 12 to 15 months. Our cash runway and our capital structure is plain vanilla. We have a cash runway all the way to the end of 26. Enlivex management team is an experienced seasoned management team that have a track record of bringing value to her shareholders, and all the way from taking drugs all the way from preclinical to global approval in the US, Europe, Japan, and so on. We're very excited about our solid science and unique mechanism of action of our platform. The fact we're talking about an off-the-shelf, cost-effective platform which will help us to grow and hopefully bring therapy and remedy to patients with different inflammatory indications. So if you want to learn more about Enlivex, about our exciting science and development programs, please visit our website at enlivex.com. Thank you very much.
Antimony is a critical mineral used in high-tech and the military, vital to America's national security and economy. But China and Russia control 80% of the world's supply. The U.S. government is rapidly securing a domestic supply of this critical mineral. Meet Nova Minerals, symbol NVA, with high-grade antimony discovered at its project in Alaska and prices at historic highs. Nova Minerals is on a mission to fully secure U.S. domestic supply of antimony. Nova Minerals, NVA.
20 million people annually end up in intensive care units and require mechanical ventilation. Now, Inspira Technologies, a NASDAQ company, symbol IINN, is developing a new technology that could disrupt the $19 billion mechanical ventilation market with an innovative life support system that elevates and stabilizes declining oxygen saturation levels without a ventilator. Inspira Technologies, stock symbol IINN.